Hi everyone, and welcome back for another episode in my Unreal Engine 4 tutorials. In this episode we're going to take a look at cutscenes and how to make them and how to use them in our level design. So to start things off, I thought I'd show off the end product so you get to see what our goal is. So I'll click play here. So I've made a simple 3D platformer and you'll get to the end. Now this lift here doesn't activate yet, so if I run down these stairs here, I can hit this button and the cutscene plays, triggering the lift to start working. I now got movement back to me. I can run back up here and I can get on the lift. Oh, there we go. And get off the lift for another switch. For a slightly different cutscene that drops that onto the bottom floor. Allowing the player then to jump up and jump up to the exit. So that's how we're using cutscenes today. We're not looking at cinematic sort of cutscenes, we're just looking at simple level design cutscenes. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm just going to pause briefly whilst I clear this up, and I'll show you how to set up the cutscenes themselves. Okay, now with the level cleaned up and I've got rid of my previous cutscenes, we're going to look at how we create them. So a cutscene is created using the Cinematics tab right on the top bar here. So it says Cinematics. Click on this button and you get three options. You have add level sequence, add master sequence, and add matinee. Matinee is a legacy thing, it's an older version and it's not really being supported much more anymore. The level sequence and master sequence are what you're looking for nowadays. So we're just going to use the level sequence, we're not touching the master sequence today. So click on add level sequence. It's going to ask you to save it somewhere, so I'm going to name my one Switch 01. And click save. Now when you do that, it will open up the sequencer. Now mine's tabbed down here, but chances are yours would be like a free window that just floats. Okay, so this is the sequencer and it's pretty basic at start, there's nothing on it, but essentially what you have down on the left are your tracks, and on the right, or the major part of your screen, is going to be the timeline. Okay, so the timeline has a green and red beginning and end. The green and red are indicating the beginning and end of the cutscene. So red is where it stops rendering the cutscene, and green is where it starts rendering the cutscene. And you can click and drag these however you wish. So for this to work, what we're going to do, we're going to start adding tracks to it. So I'm going to position my viewport camera to where I want the first one to be. So the first one we're going to do is this switch here. So when the player stands on the switch, it will trigger the elevator. So with the camera in the right position, on your sequencer you will see this little camera icon. Click on this and it will add a camera and immediately begin piloting it. And you can see it says here pilot active cine camera. And your sequencer now has loads of track details onto it. I'm going to just bring my sequencer down here, make it a bit easier to see what I'm doing. Okay, so the camera, you can set it up however you like to begin with, and when you're there you want to make sure that you have, well, I prefer to have auto key on, which is this key here. If you toggle that on to the key here, that means as soon as you change anything it will set a new keyframe, and the keyframe is basically stored data that it will tween between. So I want to store the transform location of the camera at the start. So I'm going to click on the plus icon on the transform track. So that will add this little red dot. This is a keyframe. Now all I do next is I move the scrubber, the playhead, along to where I want it, and I'm just going to move the camera somewhere else. And because auto key is set on, it will add another keyframe for me. And if I drag the playhead back, you can see it now tweens between the two keys. So I'm going to carry on going. So here I want the camera to have moved and turned to face my lift or elevator. So if I scroll back, I can see the camera working like so. Now, using a cutscene for this type of action in a game is quite useful, especially if you're aiming your game at younger audiences or less experienced game players, in that as soon as you step on the switch, it can be quite useful to show the player where they have to go to, or see the effect of the switch. So this camera literally shows the player which way they've got to walk to get back to where they need to be. Okay, so the next trick now is to make it so that this plays in the game. So I'm going to click save on the sequencer here, and what I'm going to do is now eject from the camera. So at the moment I'm piloting the camera. You don't want to be piloting it because auto key is on, so it'll start changing stuff, so you don't want that to happen. So as soon as you're done, hit the little eject button next to the camera icon, and now you stop piloting it. And you can see the camera there, you can see the path it takes too. Okay, so I need to tie this now to this trigger box I've got on my switch. So for this to work, I'm going to need the level blueprint. So the level blueprint is a blueprint that affects the whole entire level, and is ideally where you put stuff that is unique just to this level. Things such as like cutscenes or special events, or when enemies spawn, all that sort of thing happens in the level blueprint. Okay, and that's what you kind of use it for. So I'm going to click on my little box here, and with it selected, I'm going to open my level blueprint by going to blueprints, open level blueprint, and if you right click, you'll see, because I've got that trigger volume selected, I can create a reference to it, call a function, or add an event. I'm going to add a collision event for begin overlap. So now this will trigger as soon as the player walks in, or something walks into that trigger volume. So the first thing I want to do is check whether the other actor is the player. Now we could cast to it, but that's kind of a bad way to do it, because we're not actually going to use any data from the player. So instead of doing that, we're just going to go other actor and do equals to another object, and that object we want to get is the player character. So that just checks whether or not the actor that we're walking into the trigger volume with is the player character, and this goes into a branch like so. So on begin play, we are going to right click and create level sequence player, drag that out and connect it to begin play. Now you want to choose your level sequence from the list, so switch 01, and the return value here we want to store as a variable, so drag that out and click promote to variable. I'm going to call this one switch 01 cutscene. Okay, so now we've got this, we can now call this when we trigger it to play. So drag the cutscene out, choose get, and from here we can type in play, and that does what you think it does. Okay, so it plays the movie. So now if I play the game, jump across, I land on the switch and the cutscene plays. Okay, so we now need to make it so the lift starts working, and you'll notice eventually that the player can still move during the cutscene. In fact, let's do that again so you can see it for yourself. So I can play it, and you can see I can still walk around during the cutscene. So obviously you need to turn that off so that doesn't happen. You also notice that I can't activate the cutscene again, and that's quite good because we don't actually want it to do it again. And the reason why it doesn't play again is because the playhead's actually at the end of the cutscene. Okay, so if you wanted it to not to play again, you just need to reset the position of it back to 0. So we're going to now work on our cutscene to trigger this elevator to lift. Okay, now my switch platform, okay, has a blueprint on it. So if I edit the blueprint, you can see it. So I've got a function on it called turn on. Okay, and at the start I can tell whether it's on or not, and just basically tell it to turn on. And if it turns on, it does what you think it does. If you want to know how to do moving platforms, check out my splines video on it. I cover in a lot of detail there, so you don't have to worry about it here. So I've got a function there that does turn on. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to create an event track on my cutscene. So let's pilot the camera again. So to do that, you go to perspective and down to cine camera, and you can see the camera. I now pilot it, and I'll make it turn on about here. I'm going to go to add track and choose an event track, and on here I'm going to click the little plus symbol, and that adds a keyframe on my event track. If I right click on this now and go to properties, I can set an event name. So here I'm going to type in activate elevator. Okay. Now this event is only detectable by the level blueprint. Okay, so when this playhead goes along, when it hits this keyframe, this event will trigger. But you can only access it from the level blueprint. So open the level blueprint, right click and type in custom event, and you will name it exactly as it was just now. And what we can do is we can now call that turn on function on my moving platform. So I'm going to click my moving platform, back to my level blueprint, right click, go to reference to that moving platform, and from there I can access the turn on function. So if you want doors to open or enemies to spawn, you can activate that spawner to spawn the enemies or tell the door to open. Okay, but that's all you need to do. Just do turn on. Moving platform begins. So that'll handle that. If I click play now, jump into my switch, we should see the elevator starts moving. Excellent, that's what we want. So now I need to disable and enable input. So we can do it very similarly. So on the events track, at start, move the player to the start, hit the little plus symbol, right click, properties, and the event name I'm going to call disable. And I'm going to move the playhead to the end, add the plus symbol, right click, properties, and enable. So now we need to just code those two functions in. So go to your level blueprint, and I'm going to do custom event, disable, and we might as well do another custom event while we're here, enable. And the way we do this is with the player controller. So get player controller, and from there we can enable and disable input. So disable input, make sure you bring that to there, and this one's going to be enable input. Again, make sure the player controller goes into the player controller pin, and the last thing we need to add to this is the target for the thing that's going to be disabled. So that's going to be the player character. So right click, get player character, and that'll plug into both of these targets as well. Excellent. So let's go play the game and test this out. So if I run down here, hit switch, I can no longer move now. The elevator starts lifting up, and I can move again. And I can't re-trigger the cutscene, which is perfect, that's what I want. And I can ride the elevator up. So the next job is to make this button detonate that cord and drop the box. So this is very similar. So we're just going to do this again, but this time with a slightly difference in what's going on, but it's not too dissimilar. So we're going to do another cinematic. So add level sequence, and I'm going to call it switch 02. Click save, and now we've got a blank new sequence coming up. So I'm going to move the camera to where I want it. So I'm going to put it there and hit the camera button and then make a camera shot. I'm just going to zoom it out a little bit, like so. Ooh, there we go. Bit fiddly, but there we go. So on this one, again, I've got the set key auto key on. I'm going to start off the transform with a set keyframe, and then I'm going to move it along to here, and I'm just going to look down and move the camera slightly. Okay, and if I want, I can put a bit of flavour in it and just move the camera around like that. So I'm going to make it so it detonates about there, back down, and so forth. In fact, let's make it not move until it detonates. So I'm going to drag this out like so. I can drag the keyframe out. That means I get a lot better movement. Excellent. So again, add a track, event track, and I can use that enable and disable again. So I'm going to right click here. Oh, sorry, not right click. Add a keyframe, then right click on it. Properties, disable. Move the playhead to the end. Add keyframe, right click, properties, enable. So now I just need to detonate my particle effect. So I've already got a particle effect on there. I just need to tell it to activate. So I'm going to make it activate about here. I'm going to click the little keyframe plus on the event track, and this one's going to have a new custom event. This one's called detonate cable, and then go back to our blueprint. So we've got this enable and disable already. We just need to make that detonate, sorry, not detonate, custom event for the detonate cable trigger. And we need to get a reference now for that particle effect. So I'm just going to disconnect, eject from my camera, so I don't accidentally mess anything up. Click on my particle effect, right click, create a reference to P explosion, and then from there I can set activate, or set or active, like so. And I can tick the new active, and that should do it. So let's compile, and oh no, sorry, we haven't done this bit, we haven't done the overlap, my bad. So let's go back to our game, click on the trigger on the switch, go to the blueprints, and we do exactly what we've done here. So but instead we're going to make it for this trigger, so we can overlap again. Let me just move this to the side. And in fact, let's comment that out and go cutscene events. Okay, so this is going to be trigger volume 2, and it can be pretty much exactly the same we've got here. So I'm just going to copy this bit and paste it down here. And now I just need to get the cutscene level sequence player. So basically do exactly what we've done here. Copy, paste, choose the other sequence, switch O2, and promote that one to a variable. And that creates that variable for us to use down here. So I can drag that switch O2 cutscene and tell it to play. Compile. And let's go. So, jumping over, jump down to the switch, hit the switch, lift starts working, I've got control back, then we're going to climb back up to the top level using the lift we just activated. Then round here, hit the switch, bang. Oh, that's what I forgot to do. So we told it to detonate the explosion, but I forgot to tell it to set the physics on the box. So let's quickly add that to that. So we're going to, where we've got detonate cable, like so here. I'm going to create a reference to that cube, and from there we're going to set physics, simulate physics, and set that to true. Like so. Now this will work. So excuse me while I go through the level again. And then we go back upstairs. Then we'll go up to the top floor. There we go. Hit the switch. Bang. Box falls. And now our player can jump up and exit the level. Ta-da! And that's basically it. That's the intro to cutscenes. Now there are tons of tracks to use. You've got audio and media, so you can play some video, FMV on it if you want. You can also add multiple cameras and multiple shots to this. This could also be all combined. The master sequence combines loads of level sequences together, and you can do other things with it. But you add in tracks for all sorts of things here. You can also add tracks for different objects in the world. So if you want a character to do some sort of animation, or I don't know, delete themselves or spawn in, whatever, you can select them and add this to the track here too. And you just click on the track and add active sequence, and you just choose it from this list here. So here, for example, if I chose the player character, I've now got access to various tracks on the player character. I can add track and add some animation that's associated to them, so I can make them loop, jump or walk. But here you would have the animation for the cutscenes, for example, like if you're doing story beats. So if you've got a mocapped section of animation, you click take to play here. You can also do other things, make it follow paths and whatever you want. So you do transforms, just like you can with the camera, so you can make the characters move or do anything you want. Overall, you can do pretty much anything, okay? But that's how you use the level blueprint as well. So the level blueprint is just there to help you make the level interactive and playable. Okay, you wouldn't put anything that's going to be general use in there. It's all specific to the level itself, and that's where the level sequencer comes into play using it. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video and learnt something from it. If you like these videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon, just like these people have. Big thank you to them all. Couldn't be doing this without you guys. And you get access to videos early, access to the Discord, and other exclusive benefits too. Anyway, thank you very much, and I guess I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.